Chapter 38. Day 7. 1130 hours. Stephen roared as he heaved his hammer in Cameron's direction. The ethereal weapon missed him by bare inches as Cameron dove out of the way. He rolled and got to his feet, sending 2 fireballs Stephen's way. One hit, dealing 650 damage to his armor, but that was nothing compared to the 2,900 points Stephen had.
"Good shot, mate,"
Stephen shouted as his hammer crashed into Cameron's exosuit, dealing 800 damage. Cameron had nearly half the armor Stephen did, sitting at 1854. The attack knocked him down to 1054, and Cameron felt a wave of panic come over him as Stephen prepared for another. "No!" Cameron shouted. He blasted Stephen back with another fireball, dealing 625 damage. Stephen reeled from the explosion and snarled as he looked at his opponent.
"Not this time, mate."
He spat as he looked at Cameron.
"You can't beat me this time. I'm better than you. I'm stronger."
He spun and crashed his hammer into Cameron, slamming him into the ground and dealing 850 more damage. Cameron only had 150 armor left and a grand total of 235 hit points. One more attack would knock him. "Okay," Cameron relented. "Okay, fine. Just let me revive Amanda. Please, that's all I ask."
"I've got no problem with that, mate."
Stephen shrugged. He stood over Cameron, smiling, and poked his exosuit with the head of his hammer.
"Like I said, I never saw you as my enemy. We're friends, Cameron. We have the same goals. You want to protect your daughter. I want to protect my grandson. There's no reason we can't do both."
Cameron stood up, and for the first time he noticed something strange about Stephen. The man's eyes were yellow, and there was some kind of strange metal circle embedded in his neck.
"Give me the crystal."
Stephen held his hand out.
"Come on, we can go revive Amanda together."
"What?" Cameron asked, suddenly confused. Was Stephen fucking with him? "You have it, not me!" Stephen's head twitched at that response, and Cameron got to his feet. What was going on?
"I don't have any fucking crystals."
Stephen growled with a sudden burst of anger.
"Now, stop fucking with me and hand it over. This is no time for games, Cameron."
Floof and the Eternials had gained serious ground in the war zone below. Alexa and Jasmine had hit level 20, and Floof had crossed over to 21. The monsters were falling as quickly as they were coming. "Keep fighting!" Floof shouted. "Show no mercy!" He sliced his sword through a goblin and then batted it backward with his shield. "We will win this day! We will!" A sudden shadow came over them all, and Floof looked up into the sky. Something rather large was falling toward them at a great speed. Floof watched for a moment and then grabbed Alexa's arm. "Run!" he shouted. The two hurried away, and as the large object slammed against the ground, a large dust cloud filled the air and encircled them. The ground trembled beneath them, and they lost their balance. A 30-foot-tall, saber-toothed, tiger-shaped machine of sorts dug its golden claws into the ground. Its body was plated in heavy green armor plates, and its face was white shining metal. On its back was an impressive array of large turrets and missiles. As it found its balance and observed its surroundings, the creature threw its head back and let out a mighty roar. "Droop, what is that?" Floof screamed as the dust settled.
"Shit, dawg, I don't fucking care."
Droop, Floof's guide, answered. He exhaled heavily. Floof could only guess what the man was smoking. "Droop, let us forego our differences for a moment," Floof yelled. "There is a giant metal monster cat in front of us."
"No shit,"
Droop replied. He went silent for a moment, much to Floof's dismay, and then returned.
"Oh shit, dawg, that's a fucking Panzer Liger, man. Level 20, 14,500 HP. Motherfucker's got laser teeth and shit."
"How do I kill it, Droop?" Floof demanded.
"Motherfucker, you trying to get my ass fired or some damn shit. You know I fucking can't tell you that, dawg."
Droop replied.
"Just do your best, you feel me?"
"Useless as always. Thank you again for nothing," Floof sneered. He turned away and grumbled as he stared at the Panzer Liger. "Damn Droop, dog. Why did whoever is in charge see fit to pair me with him?" The Panzer Liger moved its head back and forth as it seemingly searched for targets. Floof didn't know what to do. The mechanical beast was massive, 3 times Floof's height in his exosuit. Floof stared at the monster's weapon cache and couldn't help but feel defeated. Even with his new foreman class's amplified armor and strength, he wasn't sure exactly what to do.
Power strike!
Alexa shouted as the newly promoted prospector charged forward with her sword in hand. Floof watched her run by, and then Jasmine, the new ranger, began firing her rifle wildly at the Panzerliger. "It seems strategy is moot at this point," Floof sighed as he recharged his shields. He cast armor regen on Alexa and hurried behind her. Stephen's erratic behavior was intensifying. He was pacing back and forth, cursing about crystals and liars. Something was terribly off, and Cameron reasoned that it had to do with the strange metal circle on his neck. "Okay, Stephen," Cameron said. "Look, you're right. I'll join you."
Good choice, mate!
Stephen declared in a suddenly cheery tone.
Good choice, mate! Good choice, mate!
What the fuck? Stephen sounded like a skipping record. He seemed stuck. Cameron got to his feet and approached the weirdly smiling man. "Yeah." He smiled and extended his hand for a handshake. "All good?"
All good, mate.
Stephen nodded and grabbed Cameron's hand. At that, Cameron pulled his arm free from the exosuit and reached his hand out, ripping the metal circle from Stephen's neck. Stephen gasped, and the yellow hue quickly faded from his eyes. They returned to their natural blue, and he fell to the ground. Cameron looked down at the man and began charging 2 fireballs. He was ready to strike, to blast Stephen off the top of the sphere. But something strange happened. Stephen started to weep.
I'm sorry, mate,
Stephen said with a sincere tone.
She did it. She did it in the night, and I tried to sleep. Cameron, I was resigned to helping you. You could have killed me, but you didn't. I know deep within myself that somehow we can get Gabriel from here. I'll trust you to do that, mate.
Who? A sudden wave of panic came over Cameron. Who did this to you? The sudden and thunderous sound of gunfire erupted, and Stephen was pelted with multiple bullets. He gasped as he tried to stand, but suddenly Maria appeared out of active camouflage and continued her assault against him. Round after round pierced him, and finally he was knocked. Cameron watched in horror as Maria stepped forward, snarling, and raised her weapon to deliver the final blow. "No!" Cameron shouted, smacking the weapon away. "What the hell is going on here?" "It's over," Maria seethed through clenched teeth. "It's all over. Once I kill him, we will be down to 10. Then we can relax and wait. We can go home, Cameron." "We don't want to go home!" Cameron shouted. He was heartbroken and afraid of the implications of Maria's actions. "What are you doing, Maria? Why are you doing this?" "Cameron." Her face wrinkled up and a panic expression came over her. We are in danger. We can't stay here. Something bad is happening. We need to go home. Happy Island isn't what it seems." "Stop it," Cameron snapped. "You've lost your mind, Maria. You can't just kill people." "Yeah?" she aggressively asked. "I can't." She lifted her weapon to Cameron's head, and a terrifyingly intense expression spread over her face. "Tell me what I can't do, Cameron. Try it." "Maria, please," Cameron begged. "I care for you. We can fix this. We can help you." "No," Maria screamed. She jammed the weapon against Cameron's forehead and scowled. "I have your crystals, Cameron. It was me who took them. I can't just let you keep everyone here. Being here will kill them all." "So making Stephen kill them by controlling them with that metal thing instead is a better option?" He grabbed Maria's rifle, jerking it away from his head. She resisted and fought him, but finally Cameron fired his ethereal cannon and sent half her weapon flying into the distance. 2 fireballs formed in his hands, and Cameron held them in Maria's direction. "Give me the crystals, Maria!" he yelled. "Give them to me now!" "No!" Maria screamed back. "I'll die before I do. You can't bring them back, Cameron. We have to go home. We have to." Cameron stared at the woman he had just shared so many fond times with on Happy Island. There had been moments where she had been his only source of comfort. She made him feel good, happy. He had even envisioned a future with her at his side on Happy Island. But that couldn't happen now. She was keeping him from the one thing he cherished and loved more than anything in the world. He had no time to reason with her. He knew what he had to do. Floof followed closely behind Alexa as they ran in the space beneath the Panzerliger's belly. She hacked away as they ran, searching for weak points. "Are you certain this is the wisest course of action?" Floof shouted. "This pansy Luger or whatever we found could crush us at any minute."
Oh, shut your cock-holster, needle dick.
Alexa called back.
It's better than being out there where it can hurt us with its weapons.
Floof considered her point and then nodded along. She was right. He was not interested in being targeted by the mecha's weapons system. He continued to follow Alexa until they emerged in the ass end of the beast.
"Up!"
she shouted to Floof. The rockets on her legs ignited, and she flew upward, grabbing hold of the creature's metal tail. Floof threw his hands up and shook his head. "I can't go up!" he yelled, but she wasn't listening. The Panzerliger lifted its foot above Floof, and he yelped and dove out of the way. "By the sun!" he shouted as the paw came down and kicked dirt up in all directions. "Curse this damned island!" He got to his feet and thought about what he needed to do. As the Liger started targeting some of the smaller monsters and began firing on them, Floof was grateful that he wasn't the object of the mecha's attention. "Think, Floof, think," he said to himself as he kept an eye on the creature's paw. "Up, up, how do I go up?" He summoned 3 walls into a box shape and climbed on top. Once he was up, he summoned another wall in the shape of a ramp and climbed on top of it. Another wall brought him nearly to the Liger's leg joint. "Aha!" he shouted as he leaped on top of the creature's leg. "Survival instincts be damned! This is exhilarating!" Floof climbed on top of the joint and made his way to the creature's back. Guns and rockets were deploying all around him, and he swayed to keep his balance as the mecha walked. Toward the creature's head, something caught Floof's eye. It looked like a hatch of some sort. Carefully, Floof hurried forward, and after stumbling a few times, he finally landed at the Panzerliger's neck. He reached down and threw the hatch open. Below him was a room, and the entrance was much too small for him to get through in his exosuit. To his great dismay and disbelief, he found himself exiting his exosuit and jumping down the hatch. His feet landed on a metal floor with a thud, and ahead of him he saw what looked like a cockpit. There was a windshield and multiple switches and screens, blinking lights, and a leather chair in front of it all. "Hello?" Floof called out as he stepped forward. His sword was in hand, and he was prepared to strike, but then the chair spun around. Before the man sat something that resembled a human but was composed entirely of metal. Its torso was triangular, and it had 2 arms and legs. Its head was a single orb that currently displayed what appeared to be a surprised emoji. "Oh!" the robot-looking thing declared with a hint of shock in its voice. "Well, this was not supposed to happen. Nope, not at all." "Are you piloting this thing?" Floof asked with a tone of awe. "What are you? Are you alive?" "The definition of life is subjective considering the new variables we all are experiencing," the robot declared. "We found you biological organisms and concluded that you were nothing but throbbing masses of tissue and emotion. You found us and concluded that we are nothing more than machines. What is life? What are we? Can we perhaps be both classified as life?" "What are you?" Floof asked, mesmerized. "I am called Saeed too by your people," the creature replied. "Your people call me a Psi, which I am certain is short for cyborg, which I am certain is short for cybernetic organism. The laziness of your species is reflected in your desire not to say long words. Very interesting. My people call ourselves the Yord, however. We are from a different rock than yours." "You're an alien." Floof's eyes grew wide. "Like a real alien." "We are both aliens here," Saeed declared. "I was sent here for misbehavior." "Misbehavior?" Floof's eyes grew wide. "Can a robot misbehave?" "You watch your language, you dirty bleeder!" Saeed snapped. An angry face emoji appeared as Saeed took an aggressive step forward. "I do apologize." Floof was finding it hard to breathe. Listen, you can't kill my friends. Can we perhaps reach an agreement? Since you are stuck here like us, perhaps you can join us." "Join," Saeed repeated. An ellipsis appeared in his orb-like eye as he paused for a moment. "Yes, I can join. It falls within the rules." Cautiously, Floof sent Saeed a party invite, and suddenly a green light emitted from him and seemed to spread over the Panzerliger. After a moment, the light faded. "Do you wish to take her for a spin?" Saeed asked, motioning toward the control panel. Yes, Floof replied. His hands clenched together, and he hurried into the chair. His heart thumped heavily in his chest, and he felt tears well up in his eyes. Saeed motioned toward a central joystick-looking thing, and Floof reached out and grabbed it. 2 fireballs flew from Cameron's hands and slammed against Maria's body. She yelped and was knocked backward. Cameron hurried over to Stephen and placed a hand on his back.
"You're really doing this, mate?"
Stephen panted as Cameron revived him.
"After everything?"
"I was wrong," Cameron said. "I'm sorry." Stephen got to his feet after a few more moments and nodded at Cameron. They turned toward Maria, and Cameron hurried over. "What?" Cameron shouted. She had left the party. She was not going to let him revive her. "Come on, it's going to be okay," Cameron pleaded with her. "Just join again." He sent an invite, but she quickly declined it. "Come on, Maria," Cameron yelled. "You're going to die if you don't." Maria sobbed and gasped for air as she laid incapacitated on the ground. She looked up at Cameron and pursed her lips together. "I can't," she said as she wept. "I just can't. They won't let me, Cameron." "Maria, stop it," Cameron begged. "We can make it better. I can forgive you. We can be together." "You deserve better, Cameron," she choked. "I'm sorry for doing this to you. I had no choice. It was either that or—" "Please, Maria," Cameron begged. "I care for you." Maria smiled, and a breath escaped her lips. She reached up and touched Cameron's cheek, and then a bag appeared at her side. "Thank you," Maria whispered, "for everything." Her hand went limp and fell to her chest, and she closed her eyes. "No," Cameron whispered. No, please wake up, Maria."
"She's gone, mate,"
Stephen said somberly.
"Come on, we have to—"
10 players remain! DJ cheered through the intercom. 1 minute until the game ends!
"Cameron, come on!"
Stephen shouted.
"We have to get inside to the terminal. There's no time for grieving."
At that, Stephen stepped out of his exosuit. Cameron looked up at him and then back down to Maria. He nodded it and exited his own exosuit. 50 seconds! DJ shouted. "This way!" Stephen boomed. He guided them to a stairwell that led down into the resurrection chamber. They ascended quickly and then hurried up to the terminal. 40 seconds! Cameron opened the bag and with shaking hands began to slam crystals into the machine. People were manifesting all around them, but none were Amanda. 30 seconds! "You too!" Cameron shouted to Stephen. "Put the crystals in! 20 seconds!" Still no Amanda. Cameron worked faster, and Stephen worked next to him. They had revived nearly 20 people, but none of them was his daughter. 10 seconds! A young teenage boy ran up alongside Cameron and reached his dark-skinned hand into the bag. He pulled out a pink crystal and looked up at Cameron. "Kobe!" he shouted as he slammed the crystal into the machine. "Peg!" Cameron shouted with surprise. He wanted to hug the boy, but was too busy with trying to find Amanda's crystal. Stephen hurried to put as many more as he could into the machine before the end of the game. "That's it, folks. Put your cards down and get up from the table. The Bloodgames Season 1 is officially over. What a season, my friends. What a show. Congratulations to those of you who survived. Take the next 11 hours to rest. You certainly deserved it. And for you, viewers, the Bloodgames will be off the air until Season 2 starts tomorrow morning. So go take a nap, get some snacks, make sure you have plenty to drink, and strap in for the carnage that's about to happen." Cameron lowered his head and sighed, his tears splashing against the terminal below him. He hadn't been able to get to Amanda in time. He couldn't find her crystal. "Dude, why are you crying?" Pag asked as he tugged on Cameron's arm. Cameron looked down at him and shook his head. "I couldn't find it," he sniffled. "I couldn't find Amanda's crystal. She's gone forever." "Yeah, I'm sorry you couldn't find it, man. Pag sighed. Guess it's a good thing I did. Cameron looked up and cocked his head at Pag, who smiled and pointed to his left. A 10-year-old blonde-haired and blue-eyed girl stood 10 feet away with tears in her eyes and a small smile on her face. Cameron turned and looked at her, and his heart sank. "That's not Amanda!" he shouted. "That's someone else!" "Oh," Pag said, clenching his teeth with embarrassment. "I know. I'm just fucking with you. Look behind you." Cameron turned around and Amanda slammed into him, sobbing and holding onto him tight. Cameron belted a scream and knelt down, squeezing his daughter as hard as he could. "Amanda!" he sobbed as he held the child close. "Oh, my baby, you're here. I love you so much." "I love you too, Daddy," Amanda said. "Thank you for bringing me back. Thank you so much, Daddy." "Baby," Cameron said as he stepped back, "you can always count on me. I'm here for you forever." Amanda stared up at her father with her big blue eyes and buried her face into his shirt. She held him tight and refused to let go. Stephen looked over at Pag and saw the boy standing by himself. He grunted and walked over. "So, you need a hug, mate?" Do you need a hug, mate?" he asked. Pag looked up at Stephen and sighed. "Sure," he said. Stephen clamped his arms around the kid in a big bear hug, and Pag immediately regretted the idea. "Okay, that's enough, asshole! Put the boy down, you Aussie fecker!" a thick Irish-accented woman's voice declared. Pag's eyes lit up, and he turned to see Jerry and her plump body standing before him. "Come on, lad!" She held out her arms, and Pag ran into them. "You get one today and then one tomorrow after you've proven you can still do your chores." A lone man made his way through the cheering crowd of the recently revived and stepped up behind Cameron. He felt awkward but reached out and tapped Cameron on the shoulder. Cameron released his daughter for a moment and turned around. Hank stood before him, wearing a tearful smile, and Cameron threw his arms around the man. "I guess I missed some stuff there, buddy," Hank declared as he hugged the man back. "Sorry, I was dead. Anyway, looks like the Wiener Boys are back in town." "Oh, shut up, Hank." Finally, a dark-skinned, bearded man hobbled forward with the help of a crutch. He was covered in blood and looked absolutely exhausted. Cameron's jaw dropped when he saw him, and he choked, for he was out of tears. "Hello, Mr. Cameron," Bernard declared. "You did it." His voice cracked, and Cameron lurched forward and hugged him. "We did it, Bernard," he declared. "I thought you were dead." "Allah saw fit to keep me alive," Bernard said. "Stephen knocked me and made me join his party. I did so, but never gave up faith. Without you, Cameron, none of this would have happened. You truly are the hero of the Bloodgames." Cameron looked out into the crowd and saw faces he recognized. He saw members of the Last 10, of the Eternials, and of the Slayers. As he looked upon them, he couldn't help but feel like he truly had done something. He looked down at Amanda, and then over to Pag and the others, and then watched as Floof, Alexa, and Jasmine, and some strange robot-looking thing walked up the stairs. "Ladies and gentlemen," Floof shouted as he mixed with the rest of them, "we have beaten the Bloodgames!" The end.